Liz Court is coming in, and Liz, so that we're now switching from, we're playing very quickly to the other side of the pond, the other side of the globe, to bring in Liz Court, because she's the university archivist at the Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, which is in New York. And she is passionate about connecting communities to the archives. And so she's going to talk about that today. Liz, your talk.
Hi, and thank you, Patrick, for the intro, and good morning. Well, it's morning for me and almost lunchtime for you all. It's 6:40 a.m. here in Western New York. So it is pitch dark. Perhaps it's pitch dark in London too, I'm not sure. But I will share my screen and start my talk. All right, I hope everybody can hear me okay. So my brief discussion is around stewarding RIT's historical record. Just to give you a little brief history, a capsule history, if you will, of RIT, to provide some context. The Rochester Institute of Technology traces its origins to the founding of the Rochester Athenaeum in 1829. After joining with several different Rochester institutions during the 19th century, the Athenaeum merged with the Mechanics Institute in 1891, which had been founded in 1885, and formed the Rochester Athenaeum and Mechanics Institute, RAMI. Recognizing that technical education was well-rooted in Europe, RAMI's founders looked to existing New York institutions, such as Cooper Union in New York City, Sibley College of Mechanic Arts at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. In Henry Rome's 1891 article, Technical Manual Training and Industrial Schools and Institutions at Home and Abroad, and our Athenaeum and Mechanics Institute, he states, by applying the academic or theoretical studies and problems to the manual and practical studies and work, both branches are mutually aided and a more successful educational result is obtained. At first, RAMI did not offer degrees, but instead provided specialized courses adapted to the needs of mature persons. It offered technical training supplements with humanities instructions. In 1944, RAMI changed its name to the Rochester Institute of Technology, or RIT, to better reflect the university's role in the field of technical education. In the 1950s is when RIT began conferring degrees, and then RIT moved its original location, which was in the Cornhill section of the city of Rochester, to the Rochester suburb of Henrietta in 1968. Today, beyond the main campus in Henrietta, Rochester, RIT has several international campuses located in China, Croatia, Dubai, and Kosovo. The RIT archives were created in 1960 when student records from the registrar's office were turned over to the library. The work to build and care for the archives was enthusiastically undertaken on a part-time basis by librarian Gladys Taylor, and she was made full-time archivist in 1976, which she remained until her retirement in 1989. Various librarians managed the archives on a part-time basis until the first professional trained archivist, my predecessor, was hired in 2003. RIT Archives today collects and makes accessible physical and digital materials relating to the rich history of RIT, deaf culture and history, artwork by RIT alumni, faculty, and students, and other special collections. Through digital and physical exhibits, teaching, digitizing, and public programming, RIT Archives seeks to creatively and innovatively engage the RIT community and beyond with the collections under its care. Examining the edges of RIT's almost 200-year history, one discovers the unheard voices of alumni whose lives were shaped by attending RIT. Many of their stories are preserved thanks to archivists becoming intimately acquainted with these people through the curation, preservation, and processing of personal letters, journals, notebooks, scrapbooks, and photographs, thus ensuring that the ephemeral nature of their experiences are heard for future generations to come. By sharing from the myriad of narratives held in the RIT archives, you, the audience, will hopefully gain a sense of the influence and spirit of the Mechanics Institute of Rochester, New York, which RIT continues to enhance and build upon. So the first alumnus I would like to highlight, if I can get this to work, is Marie K Finnell. She graduated from the Rochester Athenaeum and Mechanics Institute, RAMI, in 1916 with a certificate from the Department of Household Arts and Science. The department began in 1892 with courses in cooking, sewing, hygiene, home nursing, and physical culture. The program expanded rapidly, and Marie was accepted into RAMI in 1913 as part of the then largest registration in the history of the institution. For the next 40 years, Marie compiled her scrapbooks, beginning with the acceptance letter into the Institute. And just to show you, this is a picture of the cover of this we have two scrapbooks, and this is the first scrapbook and the cover, and it's in its box. As you can see, it's in delicate condition. And her scrapbook starts with her acceptance letter from the Mechanics Institute. As you can see, it's dated from 1913. And I kind of highlight in this little bubble on the right-hand side, like the specifications for what uniforms, what they should be wearing when they're in class, depending on what year they're in the program. So this starts with the acceptance letter into the Institute and ends with clippings related to her fellow alumni. In addition to her acceptance letter, she pasted into the scrapbook her course schedule, which included classes in cooking, chemistry, physical education, English, education, psychology for each term, as well as her students card, which kept track of payment for each term. So tuition during the years she attended, which were from 1914 to 1916, was, this is US dollars, by the way, was $30 per term plus a few nominal fees, making her total tuition per term under $50 a year, which today would be about $1,400 US, which is still extremely way less than what today's education costs. Unfortunately, there's not really too much more information about Marie in the scrapbooks outside of when she was a student. So in the scrapbooks, I have some pictures, and they're kind of tiny, but she did post pictures of her around Rochester and her buildings that were around Rochester. You can see on the upper corner there, that's her. It looks like she's at a church. And she says it's the corner of Plymouth and Trope. Those are streets in Rochester, downtown. And then you can see in the lower corner there, she's at a picture in a bridge. And it's really neat because to see students as they were as students at RIT, out and about in the city isn't as common as you would think. So it's cool to see this, and especially because it's early 1900s especially, but we don't actually know much more beyond than her experience of after graduation. And what we learn is I kind of combed through some federal census records and try to find what I could about her to see like where did she end up. I did find her in the 1920 federal census, and that was conducted, that was about 4 years after she finished her program at RAMI. She's listed as living with her brother Edward and his wife, and they have a 1-year-old son. And her occupation is listed, well, transcribed as matricia. I can't even, MATRICER, but that was actually a transcriptionist error. And if you actually look at the census record and you zoom in, it's listed, she's actually an instructor. So, and they lived in Savannah, New York. And he's listed, her brother's listed as a farmer. So it sounds like she moved back home because she's from Savannah, New York, and they lived probably on the family's farm. And then I find her again in a city directory, 1926 directory. She's listed that time as a student in Highland Hospital. So it sounds like she probably changed careers. And then we find in the, which is also included in the scrapbook, a list of graduates from the home economic program dated from 1950. She's listed as a nurse living in downtown Rochester. So she moves back to Rochester. And then according to a Find a Grave website database, Marie dies in December 1984 at the age of 92 in Rochester, New York, and is buried in St. John's Cemetery in Clyde, New York, which is where her family's plot was located. So here are additional pages. As you can see, there's a lot of newspaper clippings, and they involve people that she went to school with. And I guess if they showed up in the newspaper, she would clip it out and paste it in. She also put in personal things, like you can see on the left-hand side, invitations, looks like a little sewing swatch, and it's just a really great resource. And the second scrapbook we have of hers is actually a scrapbook she made out of her yearbook, 1916 yearbook, which is something we don't have a lot of. And she posted in, pictures of if there was a little clipping, she wrote it, clipped it out and pasted it under the person's photograph. She wrote in their women's married names. So this is a really rich resource. She actually I didn't take a picture of her page because she didn't write anything or paste anything in around her picture or name. And this is one of my favorite parts. This is a picture at the very end of that yearbook scrapbook, a sketch of her. And I can surmise that it's her because at the very bottom, I don't know if it's faint, it says me in quotes. And I just think it's extremely lovely. I don't have any other information other than that, like what year was this that it was done. I would have to really kind of zoom in and try to study that signature to see who was the artist and if that number underneath the artist's name signifies a year. So stuff to be researched. The second alumni I would like to feature is Fuku Matsuoka. Originally from Yokohama, Japan, Fuku attended classes at RAMI from 1933 to 1935 and studied retail distribution. As a student, she participated in golf, swimming, the Glee Club, and the Art League. We find the bulk of what we know about Fuku from an 8-page typewritten assignment entitled Philosophy of Life. After a brief biography and before a short conclusion, Fuku organizes her philosophy into 5 subsections: religion, music and art, friendship, marriage and family, and international affairs. She was the youngest child of a samurai knight family who realized early on that she did not want to follow the traditional path laid out for Japanese girls at the time. Her parents encouraged her to study flower arrangement or tea ceremony, but Fuku enjoyed singing and music, drawing and painting. To appease her parents, she took classes in court manner, those are her words, which she describes as being more physical training than tea ceremony. Although Fuku's family was Buddhist, they sent her to a Christian school where she said she found the soul of religion. For Fuku, Christianity was optimistic while Buddhism was pessimistic, which is something she says directly from in this assignment, her philosophy of her life, and something that would bear some more investigation. But she does go on to talk about how for her, the hymns and the music that she found at the Christian church, she really gravitated towards that and made her relate to the gospel and to things like that. So around 1924, Fuku lost her parents. She mentions, and this is a quote, "While my parents was living in this world, I was so happy girl who had full of joy as other girls had. But since they passed away, the hardship which I had experienced during the last 10 years, perhaps God only knows." This assignment dated July 4th, 1934, would make her parents' passing to be around 1924, which she goes on later on the document to mention that her brother and sister had also passed away. Not knowing how many siblings she had altogether, we do not know if this means she had no immediate family when coming to the US to study at RMI. Also, one is left to speculate on the cause for her parents' death. While she mentions the 1923 Japan earthquake later on in the document, the Great Kanto earthquake, it is only to say, and this is a quote, "After the terrible earthquake of 1923 in Japan, we have many children who lost their mothers in spite of the fact that they escaped together. But maybe this catastrophic event, which happened directly in Yokohama right before noon on September 1st, 1923, and killed 30,771 and injured 47,908 people out of a pre-earthquake population of almost 450,000, maybe this directly touched her family in a way that she didn't want to go into in this class assignment. Knowing that she lost her parents at such a young age makes it way more understandable why her education in the US at RAMI was sponsored by an American doctor and his wife, whom she met through the Yokohama YWCA. In 1938, she returned to Japan, where she gave private home instruction in English and interior decoration. And in June 1969, Fuku returns to RIT 30 years after graduating. And she is said to have said that she was very impressed with the new Henrietta campus and felt that the simple modern architecture reminded her of Japanese styling. In addition to this really rich short assignment, we have about 2 or 3 of her course notebooks that she maintained. So this one that's pictured here is her advertisement notebook, which is also very interesting. You see, I took a picture of some of the doodles that we all do as students that she also did. And then some of the front matter, which shows the content. So these notebooks show what students were learning in a particular course. And then the notebook actually has all of her assignments. And so for this advertisement notebook, you can see the assignments were around analyzing advertisements found in newspapers. Now, we don't know the parameters of the assignments, like, but I have to assume that she went in and picked ones that she gravitated towards, which happened to be very much about this comparison contrast between American and Asian cultures at the time. So that's also, again, these materials, even though there's just a few of them, are, I think, super rich. And I think I could see a lot of use, and historians and people, scholars, researchers kind of really gravitating. Also, though, I could see students, RIT students, being really, and what we do when we work with faculty to teach with courses and integrate it into the courses, it's kind of just show what classes were like at a particular time. So there's a lot of different avenues to go down with these. So again, this is another example of one of the pages from the advertising notebook of an assignment that she did, where she's talking about how gloves are suited for American women's fashion, but not so much for Japanese female fashion. And then the notebook goes on to have assignments and questions around how to work with customers. And I just kind of highlighted a couple of the things because the writing is so small. So this is how to handle a customer when there's many other customers and one customer is just, completely taking your time, and how do you politely kind of break the conversation. And she calls it, or they call it monologue, which I thought was funny. And then I also liked this, and I kind of highlight this because the question number 4 says, what would you talk about if your customer was a modern flapper? I mean, this is circa 1933. And I think about this, especially being funny for students today, they probably never really heard the term flapper. Maybe they did for 1920s history that they might know a little bit about, but it would be something to kind of talk about and try to understand a little bit more. Because I'm not sure I understand what a modern day flapper is. So the final alumni I get to feature for you all is Dr. Ellen Eve Schwartz. She was born in Syracuse on June 25th, 1945. She went to the Eastman School of Music in Rochester for violin until she was about 21, but left to make and repair violins instead. She was accepted at the Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, into the School of American Craftsmen's Woodworking program in 1964. And when she graduated in 1966, she was one of the first female graduates of the woodworking program to earn an Associate of Science degree. Dr. Schwartz worked for the Rochester City School District as an industrial arts teacher and made furniture to sell at stores. Dr. Schwartz went on to earn her master's degree in counseling from the State University of New York, Brockport in 1988. In 1994, she earned a Master's of Education from the University of Rochester and stayed on to earn her Doctorate of Education 2 years later. And then her career in teaching took her to several universities throughout New York, including Pace University, Niagara University, and Nazareth College. Dr. Schwartz published numerous art books and articles and never stopped working on her furniture and woodworking projects on the side for fun. In the exhibit catalog for Language of Wood, an exhibit that took place in Buffalo in 1975, Ellen, one of the artists exhibited, states, and this is a quote, "Making functional furniture and understanding that process as a possible vehicle of social consciousness are primary concerns of mine. The material I use is secondary, although many people are struck by it first, foremost, and finally. In 1970, I was searching for a material to use in my simple shop and found plywood. It was easily available, inexpensive, strong when laminated, and could be worked with the basic tools I had. The more I used it, the more it appealed to me. I use it so there's very little waste, political appeal. It isn't rare or precious, so my prices reflect that social appeal. I scrounge plywood at construction sites for small works, economic appeal, and The simple and direct methods of construction allow me to concentrate more on concepts than technique, personal appeal, i.e. knowing your strong points and limitations. All said, we seem suited for each other. She goes on to say about social concerns, I quote, I would like to see craftsmen take a step away from the art for art's sake mentality so prevalent in Western art in order to become more of an integrated and needed part of the culture. The ascribed pedestals we sit on can make it difficult to see that art for the sake of it has no meaningful relationship to the needs of people or the need of real change in this society. So I just showed, this is a picture, just a smattering shot of the various types of work she did. These are completed chairs that she made. And I don't know if you can kind of see, but this is all plywood that she put together and then laminated and made into chairs. I think that's so cool, because my understanding of plywood is that you get splinters and it's rough and it's not very easy to work with, but you see these pieces of art essentially that she made that are functional, that people sat in. So these were presumably pictures of chairs that she made for various clients. And then in our archive on the left-hand side, there's a picture of, I hope you can see, it's a wooden high chair. This is actually the high chair she made for her son. And then on the right-hand side, it's just like two little mini versions. They're prototypes of chairs she went on to make. So this collection is just really neat and also has that visual. And so this has a high exhibit appeal, but also just really neat to kind of see the artistic process. And let's see.
I think we're going to have to finish up a little bit there, Liz, if you're...
Oh, I just have one more minute. I can just zoom on past. I hope I gave a snapshot of how impressive Ellen is. And these are some sketches that she made for clients. And then I just want to show that these are wooden eye-frame glasses that she wore. She wore wooden eyeglasses for 15 years or so. And we have one of them in the collections. Sorry about the shine from the plastic. But I just think that's so cool. So anyway, just to kind of fast forward to the very end, today I've shared with you 3 brief vignettes of 3 female alums woven together from donated collections and artifacts that are represented in the collections the RIT Archive steward. Each attended a different program. So we have household arts and science, retail distribution, and woodworking, roughly 10 to 20 years apart from one another. Interestingly, when looking at them together, they loosely reflect the different and changing roles of women held within society over a 50-year period, as well as the changing nature and expansion of RIT and its offerings and what people, from going from a diploma and to a conferring degree program. So anyway, I look forward to any questions people have. If you want to follow up with me, please feel free to shoot me an email.
Yes, thanks, Liz. The emails addresses for all the presenters are in the back of the proceedings document, so that, I think our own archivist is on the talk out there, Helen, and I have never seen within our university where with our 144,000 alumni, such a lovely set of stories coming from and such a rich collection. So, you really have taken us straight into the 21st century as to what a library should be doing, with this archival material. And you really should be complimented on the work that you're doing, and the passion with which you spoke about your alumni came across. And I think we're all like that about our alumni. Some of them who are very well known. I found a notebook of Patrick Geddes' son-in-law in the National Museum, which was exactly like his show, full of doodles. Actual lecture notes full of doodles. I think it's everybody has doodles in their lecture notes. And of course, I'm not sure nowadays they just read their social media feeds, so they're not really doodling anymore. So I think doodling is dying out. And in years to come, they'll want to know what a doodle is, apart from a doodle poll. So I don't know if there's any questions there. Ellen has made a comment that, do you make exhibitions? So there would be a question there. Do you have exhibitions on the material?
Yes, we do. We have a very active, we have physical exhibits as well as digital exhibits. Right now, we're undergoing a major renovation project. So we will not have physical exhibits until we have our brand new space, renovated space in another year or so. So we're very excited about that. But yes, we actively, and we work with very closely. I think it's important that that students curate exhibits, right? So we really work hard to have RIT students work with the archives, because we believe the archives really enrich the student experience at RIT, and it's something that we can offer that another school might not be able to.
Oh, that's an excellent idea. I mean, we're going to get some good ideas from this session today. So we'll, hopefully Heriot Watt can take some of those away. Thanks very much, Liz. We're going to have to move on.